Hello. Josh, what is that character you have for your
Oh, it's oh, this is a mascot character that talks. You can check it out on the it's his name is Funasi. I can send you the video of it.
Nasi and a
Fu.
Funasi?
Yeah, I'm it's too funny. It's too funny. I'm gonna have to show you this video.
What does it say on his shirt?
It just says his name. I gotta show you this one.
Hi, everybody. Josh, I asked him who that cartoon character was. He said
What should I?
Funasi. He's going to send a video. Oh, you could put it in the chat.
Okay, sure.
Anyone?
Where's the chat? Let's see. There.
We won't watch it now because we're about to start, but
Yeah.
maybe I'll click on it and save it later. 3 minutes.
それでは行こう。大爆発。
Sorry about that.
Well, it's a funny video. He's a very famous TV personality in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It looked like it was somebody in a costume, not an animation.
Yeah, it is somebody in the costume, but it's funny because he actually talks.
Welcome, everybody. Hope you had a good week, a good weekend. I saw lots of new recordings uploaded to the drive, so that's good. Is that Joshua laughing?
Yeah.
Are you watching the video of Funasi?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
With your headphones. All right. Even though you've seen it before, it's funny, huh?
It's timeless.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being on time. Mr. Berman should be here any second now. We have some exciting news for you about the spring set. But that's all I'm going to say because I want Mr. Berman to be the one to announce it. So I'm glad so many people are here on time. Oh, there he is.
Hi, folks. Sorry I'm so late tonight. I was casting around looking for my materials and making sure they're all ready, so sorry for showing up a couple of minutes late. Hello, everybody. Good weekend, I hope. and good to see you. So I thought I'd share some things to start off this meeting, including a few recordings by Gustav Mahler, some things to talk about, and some things that are peripherally related to what we're doing right now. Mahler is just a really fascinating figure in the late Romantic period for writing these massive, monstrous symphonies that were really by far the majority of his output, and kind of the most, if you want to say it this way, the most kind of psychologically significant of composers. Most is a strong word because every composer has, place that their music comes from. For him, it was this really interesting combination of his, dual identities in late 19th century Europe, and his relationships with others. His very fraught relationship with his sometime wife, and other people who came in and out of his life. But I thought it'd be interesting to look at a few things, just to kind of hear some different ways that he used similar ideas. And in one case, different ways that he used similar ideas in his music in very close years, and then in another sense, actually, a way another composer transported his ideas into a very modern way of realizing the music. So Gustav Mahler wrote a vocal piece called "Songs of the Wayfarer" in about 1886. And this was the piece that sort of traced the way that it's been interpreted is sort of traced a love relationship that he'd had or had wanted to have that had not worked out. And in the movement that we're going to hear, he creates this. You know what? I think I won't use adjectives because what I want to do is ask you what you think about this music before we hear how he uses it in a different context. So maybe I won't even tell you the name of the piece, the title of the piece. What I'd really like to do is just share a video of a performance of this movement with you. It's about 4.5 minutes long or so. And what I want to ask you afterwards, and I'll be open to any responses, and there's no right or wrong answer here. We're just trying to think about the sound of the music. What emotions do you get from it? What do you think the piece is saying? Now, if you speak German, or if you already are familiar with this piece, I'll ask you to hold your feedback until others have responded, because I think it's most interesting to think about what the emotion of this piece is as we see it translated to another, I guess, musical identity. So we're going to hear the Berlin Philharmonic playing this. This is the second movement of Songs of a Wayfarer. And the soloist is a baritone, Christian Gerhane. It's interesting because this piece is not gendered. So it has been sung by both men and women in the past, in the sense that it never says, oh, I wish that she loved me, or I'm so happy to be a woman or a man. It's just in the voice of an observer that's not gendered. So it has been sung by both genders, and here sung by a man. Let me share with you, and again, just observe the emotion and tell me what you think about it. And anything else you want to observe about this performance, please do. Happy for all feedback afterwards.
Heut Morgen übers Feld, auch noch auf den Gräsern hing, sprach zu mir der lustige Fink: Ei, du Geld! Guten Morgen, ei Geld, du, wer trägt eine schöne Welt, schöne Welt! Sing, sing, schön und flink, ausgeschenkt. Wird nicht eine schöne Welt, schöne Welt? Wie mir doch die Welt gefällt. Heia! Fing im Sonnenschein, gleicht die Welt zu funkeln an. Alles Ton und Farbe gewann im Sonnenschein, und Vogelgruß und Knall. Guten Tag, ist's nicht eine schöne Welt? Ei du Geld, ei du Geld, schöne Welt. Nun fängt auch mein Glück wohl an. Nun fängt auch mein Glück wohl an. Nein, dass ich mir nimmer blühen
Yeah, so how about that? I mean, I think we can all agree it's really beautiful. Maybe we can't. Maybe some of you didn't like it. But can you give me some feedback? Like, if you don't speak German, if you don't know what he was singing about, what would you think he was singing about?
I mean, I don't speak German. The only word I understood was Guten Tag, but it sounded very peaceful. It sounded happy, and it sounded almost maybe like love, I guess, in a way. But I have a feeling maybe there's a twist because you're being kind of a little bit, you're not giving it all away in the front. So I'm interested to see where this is going.
Sure.
This is like very much out on a limb,
Yeah.
but just it almost reminds me of the opening to Beauty and the Beast, maybe, where like Belle's like going around and be like, oh, what's up? They're, and stuff like that. I don't know. It gives me like just woke up and I'm going on the town vibes.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Before I respond to anyone, I want to just take as much feedback as you guys want to offer. Going to the woods and seeing deer vibes for some reason, says Sebastian. Yeah. The middle part reminded me a little bit of birdsong. I thought it sounded kind of like he was meeting someone or thinking of something new or awe-inspiring, says Hannah. A few more? Like sunlight in the forest, kind of. Yeah, great. What about the change at the end? I mean, that's not central to kind of what I'm asking here, but I'm just curious, you know. Go for it. Somebody. Do it, Rockapella. You can do it. Go for it. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everyone who responded. It was. I mean, I can just honestly say that everybody basically put their finger exactly on the pulse of the piece, because everything that you said was true. All of you. You sort of encapsulated everything that the singer says. So let me just quickly read the translation of this to you. This is a song that is essentially about new love or like imagined love, where you don't even know if it's requited, and it's also about being in nature, like while you're walking along, you know, kicking pebbles, feeling excited. So this piece is called "Ging heute Morgen übers Feld," which means this morning I went across the fields. And the text is this: I walked across the fields this morning. Dew still hung on every blade of grass. The merry finch spoke to me. Hey, isn't it a good morning? Isn't it becoming a fine world? Chirp, chirp, fair and sharp. How the world delights me. That was the finch being quoted. Okay, going on. Also, the bluebells in the field, merrily with good spirits, tolled out to me with bells. Ding, ding, their morning greeting. Isn't it becoming a fine world? Ding, ding, fair thing, how the world delights me. And then, in sunshine, the world suddenly began to glitter. Everything gained sound and color in the sunshine. Flower and bird, great and small. Good day, is it not a fine world? Hey, isn't it a fine world? And then finally the narrator says, now will my happiness also begin? No, no, the happiness I mean can never bloom. So even though it's never expressly said in this poem, it we come to know through the course of the piece, the larger piece. This is only one of four movements. That the happiness is not just because he's walking through nature and it's inspiring the speaker, but also because there's this new feeling of love that's going to be explored in the piece. So I think that is implied completely in the music. You know, it's just like you're suffused with the beauty of the world and also this internal love. So that I thought, yeah, everyone's feedback was wonderful. Let's listen to a little bit of Gustav Mahler's First Symphony. Now, this piece is extremely long, so we're just going to listen to one bit of it. Let me see if I can find it here. Where did you go? First Symphony. Oh, there it is. Okay, great. Yeah. So we're talking about a piece that's you know, over an hour long, and a first movement. So we're listening to the first movement of Mahler's First Symphony, and when we talk about the sort of great symphonists of the classical world, think of Beethoven, Brahms, Mahler, Bruckner, a lot of, you know, European, German, sometimes French and Italian speaking folks when we're talking about the late 19th century. All of them in this late 19th century would have revered the works of Beethoven. And if you've ever heard Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, it's best known for the sort of last movement, the Ode to Joy movement, where you may or may not be familiar with this sort of framework of the last movement, but it goes back and has these little choppy bits that it excerpts from the first three movements. And then the singer comes in, brushes it all aside, and said, no more of that stuff. Give us these new sounds, and they're sounds of joy and brotherhood. And then the Ode to Joy comes in. The Beethoven 9 opens with a less famous moment, except sort of in, deep cut classical music circles, where you just have this big open fifth. And can you hear this? Let me see if I can make this somewhat audible. Sorry. I hit the accompaniment button. Right, so you just get this big open sound. If you can just imagine that held out. This big empty primordial sound. And that's the way Mahler's First Symphony starts. With this big open fifth that just sounds extremely ethereal. And then slowly over the course of a long period of time, little melodic elements start to appear. I'm going to skip some of those just for time's sake. And then at a certain point, I'll kind of skip ahead to where we hear the first main melody. But I think it's interesting to hear how Mahler recycles this use of his previous melodic material. So the piece we just heard, the Songs of a Wayfarer, was premiered in 1887. This piece, this piece was a year later in 1888 or 7. I can't remember exactly which. So we're talking about just a year later. He's using these materials again because they're really foremost in his mind, and he really loves this melody. And there's a sort of relationship in the piece too. Uh-oh, I'm not hearing any sound. Let me just see if we hear sound as this starts. So this is our kind of primordial opening. Off-screen trumpets. Slowly waking up. I'm going to skip a little bit ahead here. There's our cuckoo again. right. Stop there. First things first, or last things first, at the very end there, you heard the cellos come in. That's kind of a way of hearing the form. Now, this is kind of bonus, extra credit, not necessarily any reason you would know this, but do you have any sense what was happening there? And I guess the hint is you'd heard that thing before. Okay, there's no reason anyone should know this. So that's where you take the repeat back to the beginning of the exposition of the movement. So we know oftentimes the first part of the symphonic movement in classical and romantic music can be repeated. So there you just heard it go back to the beginning of the exposition, so that they've taken the repeat and they would just play that first swath that you heard that was, 6 minutes long or something again. Yeah, so Songs of a Wayfarer uses a much smaller orchestra than this. And so you can kind of hear the way that a composer can take something that's written for a smaller orchestra and then expand it into this huge possibility of kind of sonic power, as this small idea in the cellos is dum dum bum bum. Gets expanded to this big outburst at the end there in the orchestra. Any reflections or thoughts as you just heard that?
It almost sounded like Peter and the Wolf, but for grown-ups, maybe.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think that's astute because, when it comes to Prokofiev, the sound of the orchestra is so profoundly detailed. His way of characterizing emotions and characters, the grandpa, Peter, the wolf, the cat, the duck, etc. I think Mahler can definitely do that too with emotions. He has a very kind of colorful hand for orchestration. Okay, so I mean, it's one of the old adages of classical music is that composers steal from everyone, including themselves. So there's only so much possibility in the world of music and statistics and creativity to not remake a melody you might have heard earlier, even if it's an honest mistake or completely subliminal or even not intentional at all. You might be making the sound of another melody you've heard before. And then as a composer, as an individual, it's completely your prerogative to reuse melodies you've used before, even if you slow the tempo down, turn it to minor, and give it a totally different identity. Okay, one more thing I'll share with you, this a little more brief. This also from Mahler. Some of you, I think about 2, maybe 3 years ago, saw the Santa Cruz Symphony perform the Mahler Second Symphony, which is titled the Resurrection Symphony. And there are 2 movements of that where there are singers, right? The 4th movement is a solo mezzo-soprano. 5th movement uses solo soprano, mezzo-soprano, and choir. And that's really what's thought of as the Resurrection movement, because there's this huge chorale at the end where the choir describes this moment of kind of this bursting forth, this resurrection. The 4th movement is in some ways I won't say in some ways, there's no reason to equivocate. It is by far the most, personal and vulnerable and intimate. It's for solo, mezzo-soprano, and a smaller section of the orchestra. We would have fewer players playing here. The name of the movement is Urlicht, and in German that means primal light. So this time I'm going to read you the translation beforehand because I'd like you to know what the singer is saying. This I feel is probably one of my top 5 moments in all of classical music. I feel I could hear this again and again because it's so powerful, and also really beautiful. I mean, powerful emotionally, not necessarily in a happy way, but also just musically extraordinarily beautiful. So this is again called Urlicht, which is translated as primal or primordial light. So the German text translated in English is approximately this. It starts with the sentence, "Oh, red rose." And you can imagine there being like a dash or a colon or something. Man lies in direst need. Man lies in direst pain. I would rather be in heaven. So that's the first kind of paragraph of it. It sounds despairing, but when you hear it, it's really spoken a little bit more as an observation rather than being angst-filled. And then the music changes a lot, and we have this text. I then came upon a broad path. An angel came and sought to turn me back. Ah, no, I refuse to be turned away. I am from God, and to God I will return. Dear God will give me a light, will light my way to eternal blessed life. Okay, so this is a text that we don't really know who wrote this text. Even though it uses the word God, it's not really, this is not what we would call a religious or sacred text, as we don't really know what's intended by that word in this piece, especially coming from someone like Mahler, who was Jewish by birth, and then had a very, I guess you'd say, unclear relationship to any kind of faith or religion. So remember first that the first 4 lines that you hear are, "Oh, red rose, man lies in direst need, man lies in direst pain. I would rather be in heaven." And then you'll hear a major change in the sound of the music, and you'll hear the second part with the person coming upon the broad path and encountering the angel. So here we go with this. I'll play a video again here. We're going to hear the soloist Nathalie Stutzmann, who I really admire so much because you'll see her here and they'll show her face as she sings. She's not only an amazing contralto soloist, which is contralto meaning a low mezzo-soprano, but is also a very celebrated conductor, and she's just a very powerfully talented and amazing person. Yeah. So the beginning of that is just really, I feel it as one of the more personal moments kind of in classical music history, where you have this very unusual orchestration of just like very light strings and then this brass chorale that accompanies the singer as she's singing about the humanity essentially being in great pain. The thing I wanted to share after that is something that is very much the same emotion, but totally different. Anybody heard of a jazz? Well, you could call him a jazz player. He's a pianist who's primarily a jazz player, but does a lot of crossover work. And I think this is a stage name, but his name is Uri Cain, Uri Cain, Caine. So he has done just so many albums that are just really wonderful, and a lot of them are tributes to classical composers, but in this format that is either jazz or completely free form, inviting a whole bunch of guest artists. So I think one of the most mind-blowing albums I've ever heard is Uri Cain's version of the Bach Goldberg variations, because some of it is done by classical ensembles, and they're just doing kind of their take on one of the Goldberg variations. Which is the set of variations Bach wrote on one very simple piece that's called the aria. And then some of them are done by DJs or, like avant-garde vocalists, others by like straight ahead jazz groups. It is just absolutely unbelievable, insane, just stream of consciousness, I guess you'd say producing of an album, but I think it's just amazing. Well, so anyway, Uri Cain himself put together this, I think what it's a sextet to play their version of Irrlicht that you just heard. And so you'll hear the introduction, which sounds just like a small instrumental group version of the very opening of the piece, including the vocal melody. And then there's a solo by the violinist. And so everybody, I mean, you've got to check out this solo. I just feel like it's one of my, I've already talked about Mahler being one of my top 5 or whatever. This solo, I feel like, as much as I've listened to a lot of jazz in my life, and I feel like this just is really in my top 10 favorite solos, even though it's not very long. It's a violin solo that uses everything from, melodic playing to cross string arpeggiation to like bow smashing, big, heavy, groany sounds from the violin. And it really gets to this whole idea that we're talked about in the text of the piece, essentially humanity being in a bad place, and the sort of pathos of observing that. So this piece only uses the first section of Urlicht. It doesn't go into the section where you heard this "Da kam ich auf einen breiten Weg," where the character changes. So this is pretty short. This is only a couple of minutes long, but listen to it closely because I think it's really worth the listen and really special. This is just audio only. I'm sharing this. There's no video accompanying it. Where are you? There we go. Yeah. I don't know how it strikes you. Maybe you can tell me. I've listened to it a lot of times, so I have a close relationship with it. Maybe on first hearing. I don't know. Any responses? You liked it? You didn't like it? It was moving. You didn't. You weren't feeling it.
This is a weird analogy that came to me, but the way I feel listening to that piece is the way I feel about like eating kimchi, of like it or like blue cheese or anything like that, where it's like it isn't like I eat it and I go like, oh my god, this is like the most tasty thing, but something about it is really satisfying, I think, and also it feels like it's good for me to be exposed to, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. That's a really interesting and fun response. I like that. When I was a kid, my stepdad used to hoard kimchi in the refrigerator. And every time I would open up the refrigerator, and I'm talking about I was probably 9 or so. Oh my God. I just couldn't understand what was going on. But now I love kimchi. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. It was mostly winds in the background. I think there was certainly a bass, but um, the the you're right, Hannah, and also Sebastian, sort of the same idea. They give the soloist complete freedom to just do whatever he or she, I'm not sure who's playing it, wants to do, in the sense that there isn't a groove. There's just an open chordal accompaniment, and the person just goes with it. Okay, I really enjoyed. Yeah, great. Well, good. I'm glad you either enjoyed it or took it in and registered it as something to maybe listen to again, or just. I think it's good to be reminded that as a soloist, you should think. Actually, I shouldn't say as a soloist, as an instrumentalist, period. You should think of the colors your instrument can make. So I think one of the most impressive things about that solo is the way that soloist uses every possible color of the violin. So from really light bow, where you get these kind of ghostly sounds, um, to like heavy arpeggiando, to super light kind of bouncy arpeggiando, to digging the string, just using a ton of weight at the end there, that stuff, to just playing totally melodically, you playing up close to the bridge, playing far away from the bridge for that flautando effect. Okay, well, I hope all of that was interesting and useful to you all. Just I think getting to know the repertoire a little bit better and knowing some of these ways that things are reproduced is an interesting way to get closer to the music that we play. I'm going to switch over now to the stuff that we're currently working on. So first to our improvisation projects, and then we'll look in a little bit later at the cowl. So for those of you who did what I asked and signed up on your project, your improvisation project with Hannah's tracks this week, thank you. I didn't really ask you to do anything other than sign up. That said, some of you already recorded some things, which I'm really grateful to see. If you haven't done it yet, you need to do it, please, immediately. Okay, and I'm just saying, please just sign your name up on the project, create a track for yourself, put your name on it, because this week I'm going to be asking you definitely to do some recording. I want to take some time to listen to some things that have been done this week. I'm going to share some of the projects as they're in progress. That being said, I know that those of you who recorded this week don't really expect that what you did was your final work. So I want to ask a quick, let me just actually look at the ones that I've set aside to share. Let's see. Yeah, so I have the F. Lydian project where Jaden and Hannah have recorded some things and some others have put their names in. And then I have the first B flat major project. Oh, wait a second. Where did this go? I think in a second I'm going to share the first B flat major project, but I believe I closed the window that I intended to share with. So if you could guys could just give me 20 seconds here, talk amongst yourselves, and I'll be with you in a second. Aha, there we go. Wait, let me just ask, because I'm struggling a little here to find the one that I had wanted to share. Where did it go? Just because I remember you're on it, Xander, if you can hear me, can you tell me which project you're on? Sorry, that was, wow. If you're on right now, Xander, sorry, Xander, you're breaking up so badly that you sound like you're being filtered through. Oh, you're in the F major project. Okay. Yeah, it sounded like there was a massive filter on your voice, Xander. We couldn't even hear what you're saying. Okay, if you'll just give me another second here, folks. Sorry, it's taking me a second. Oh, here it is. I got it. All right, fine. Good. Okay. So let me share a little bit of the F major project where we have Sophie Matea, Xander, and Mira, and Scout has signed up for it as well. And I don't mean to put you guys on blast. In fact, if anyone feels awkward about me sharing at this point, you can let me know by private message. It's not that I want to talk specifically about what you did. It's because that I want to kind of use a couple of examples to show different ways we can approach this music. Yeah, just one second here. I got that private message. All right, so thanks for your patience, everyone. Let me just share here. Oh, I still am sharing sound. I get it. Here we go. So here you see this project, which is one of Hannah's 4 projects. You can see that we start with the loop, and then is this second one? Yeah, so these top 2 tracks are obviously the click track and the accompaniment. And then we have Sophie, Xander, and Mira who have contributed so far. So what I want to just play a little bit of what I thought was very successful from what's happening with this collaboration so far, which is that I don't know if you guys planned it, Sophie and Xander, or if you just listened to one another, whoever contributed first. But you've ended up really creating a lovely duet with each other. So let me just play a little bit of this. Okay, really beautiful. So here are my first. I'm going to give some critical feedback before I heap the praise on y'all. I think there was maybe a misunderstanding of what I'm asking you to do in terms of doing multiple contributions, because this is my fault for not being clear about this. I never thought you would interpret it this way. I didn't intend for you to do multiple simultaneous contributions. I meant for you to do whatever, 25 seconds here, 25 seconds later on here, something like that. And the problem that we might run into with this is that BandLab has a total possible of 16 tracks per project. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 used. And there's still a good 5, probably 5 to 6 people waiting to join this track. Maybe there's only 5. But we have to understand that if everyone built the track this way, we would run out of tracks. It would just not be possible. Okay, so what I really intended for you to do, and I don't mind that you use multiple tracks simultaneously, but the intention is for you to just use one track, or if you really want to be, kind of go the extra mile, you could add a couple of moments where you have a second track just to augment your first one. But I would prefer that you work in terms of 1 track to 2 at the very most, because as I say, we have a total of 16 we can use. And here we've already used 9 in this group. The other thing that I would be, and this is not really critical because I think this is really beautiful. This is really exceptional work at the beginning here. But a way we can approach this that I think brings a more interesting possibility of textures is that what you've done here, you all, is if we can see, you've created 8-bar phrases, right? So you can see this is the 9th bar. So Sophie's first phrase is 8 bars long. Xander's first phrase goes from 9 to 17. That's 8 bars long as well. It goes along with this ton, ching, ching, ton, chun, chun, ton, chun, chun, ton, chun, chun, 5, 6, 7, 8. This 8-bar phrase that is part of the accompaniment, right? And that's perfectly logical. That's really how we should think normally as musicians. But what could be more interesting is to think of playing phrases that aren't necessarily an even number of bars or a perfect number of bars with the accompaniment. Because remember, these are modal improvisations. So that means that even if you play something that doesn't correspond perfectly to the exact chord played at that moment, really you should be, overall, as long as you're in this world, you should be in good shape. I want to go back for a second to another piece, and this was, I played this already, so I'm not going to play the whole thing, but this was the first round of improvisations that we did. I just didn't connect you all in the way that worked, so we couldn't get everyone playing together. But Robin and Jaden managed to get themselves together somehow. And you see here how these blocks are all different lengths. This shows they're looping. And they did it all at different sort of total durations. And what that means is as they loop again over each other, they'll be folding one another over another over another and interacting in different ways. So we get this effect. So you see here, at bar 6, this one starts again. Again. Right after that, Robin starts again, and then Robin's other track. Okay, so I think you get the point. Like, this isn't the way it always needs to work, because the beginning of the F major improvisation on Hannah's piece sounds amazing. It sounds beautiful. Oops, where'd I go to? Here. But if we all record in perfect synchronicity, we might miss an opportunity to have something that kind of becomes a little bit less directed always to the home phrase, because this is improvisation. We might want to just kind of go different directions. So if we know that the opening phrase is 8 bars long and repeats at bar 9, we could do something that's 6 bars long and repeat that. Okay, or we could do something that's 5 bars long or 10 bars long or something like that. So that's one thing to think about. Okay, as we go along. So two bits of feedback. One, be careful that you try to use only one track. at the most 2, and hopefully we won't run out of tracks. Secondly, see if you can think about not necessarily being symmetrical always with your phrases, but find different ways to have your phrases create accents in varying ways by making them asymmetrical with the measures. That said, this is amazing. Okay, I'll stop it there. Great. Okay. So those of you who are on the F Major Improv Project who haven't signed on to this yet, please do so ASAP and start thinking about how you want to contribute. Given that, you know, these guys have already done so much in the first half of the piece, or the first, I should say, the first third of the piece, we might start contributions. You could still add to this first section, but think about, you know, coming in later here and developing this later section. Okay. Yeah, let's see here. I think the other thing I wanted to show. Oh yeah. Oh no, this is the early one. Oh, there's some chat questions maybe. Oops. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is one where I just actually want to demonstrate something that's purely logistical. So I already actually made a little correction here. And Jaden, from what I'm about to say, I want you to know what I'm about to describe is not your fault at all. And in fact, it's already fixed, so it's not a big deal. But when I first got this recording, this is something like what I heard. This is with just Jaden and Hannah having played into the F Lydian project. This is just the background. So anyway, the point I'm going to basically get to very quickly here is that I think that there was some latency when Jaden recorded, and it didn't come in perfectly in the beat, which is unusual for Jaden since he's a really wonderful percussionist. And when I went back in, I actually just chopped off a little of the beginning and then lined up the beats where I could see they were intended to be. Yeah, that must be about right. And then I got this. So if you listen, it's just right in the beat. Yeah, so you can hear like it's the groove is just right in the beat there. I only point this out, Jaden, not to embarrass you, because none of it being off was your fault. But as I listened to it, I realized there must have been some latency when you're recording, because once I lined it up, it was just exactly in the groove. And then this is getting a little ahead of myself, but I've mentioned this before, but just FYI, guys, what you're hearing right now is completely dry sound. And once we've all recorded, I'll go back in and excuse me, add some effects so that we can hear this in a much kind of more kind of studio sound sort of way, like you know, putting Jaden right now in your left ear if you're listening in stereo, and Hannah in your right, and adding some reverb. Yeah, so it's just FYI, there's going to be some additions that will make the whole thing blend together much better than just what you hear as the dry version that you start with. I'm not going to save those changes I just made because I think it's better if we start off. Oh, actually, maybe there's one more thing I'll add. If you come on to the recording to add your part, let's say a D you come on, and you want to focus on just the main tracks and not the other players so much, you can turn them down. But remember, when you finish, it's courteous to turn everyone back up. It's not like you're going to change their recordings or ruin their recordings at all. You cannot change their recordings unless you intentionally go in and delete them or something. But just so that the next person comes in and can hear the whole thing, it's courteous to turn back up the volume of the players that you might have reduced the volume on, just so the next person can hear it completely. And then the next person might just want to go in again, turn everyone's volume down just to focus on the main beat. But it's also interesting to hear everyone at the same time so that you can kind of put your voice in when others aren't playing. Okay. Yeah. This is just a message for Nathan. Thank you for doing this first section of recording. It sounds very good. And I really liked how you did the first section kind of with longer bits and then this kind of beat in the second section that you did. I just wanted you to know, Nathan, that your first recording went a little bit astray because you probably recorded the same time as somebody else. So I imported your tracks into the project that other people are working on, even though you're still the first who's actually laid something down. So it's in here. Your project is in here, the bits that you've recorded so far. Okay. And then maybe I'll play a bit of this one too, just to get a sense of what these first couple of contributors have done. Yeah, so two really lovely improvisations, really good. They work well together. It's great. It's a really wonderful start. I don't expect that you guys meant for this to be the final thing that you do. And I don't mean that to say you shouldn't keep this bit, but I do want to say that rather than just doing one bit and looping it the entire time, I prefer you do like maybe this first loop a couple of times and then do something, more melodic, or it doesn't mean you already played something melodic, something that is a longer recorded bit instead of looping the entire thing from beginning to end. Okay. And I'll also just let me finish the thought and then I'll be right with you.
Sure.
Yeah, the other thing I would say is both of you also why can't I change this? Okay. Well, both of you also recorded this 16 bar phrase, which is kind of what I'd said in that first group that I'd shown in the F major improvisation. Instead of just doing something that's entirely symmetrical, it might be nice for the next thing you add to be either asymmetrical or again, just to be a longer segment. Okay, sorry, whoever spoke up was that, I'm not sure who that was.
Hi, that was Robin. I added to that maybe 30 minutes before rehearsal, so I don't expect it to be shown, but I'm just curious, did you have that open before rehearsrsal? Because like shouldn't
I
it
did.
update so my track is there?
I
Okay.
had it open before rehearsal, and that's why. So one of two
All right.
things happened. Either I had it, well, I definitely had it open before rehearsal, so I didn't refresh it, and so it doesn't automatically import. And secondly, this would be, I hope this didn't happen, but it might have, is that maybe your track veered away because I had it open already. But if it did that, Robin, I can easily just copy your part over and it's not lost. It'll be exactly the same as it was, and it'll just add to the project that already exists.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Mr. Berman?
Yep.
The same exact thing happened to me. I think I did message you in the chat, but the same
Oh, sorry,
exact-
I didn't say that. So I didn't see that. So you also contributed right before rehearsal, and maybe it veered off because I had it open?
Yeah.
All right. Well, no problem. No problem, Ben and Ruben. I will go in and fix those. Not Ruben, Robin. Sorry, I just looked at your username. Okay, good. Yeah, I think overall, what I just really would like to, the points I want to sort of repeat and drive in are, think about the possibility of asymmetrical phrases. So that your phrase could be like 18 beats long, which doesn't fit into 4/4, or it could be 5 bars long or something like that, so that you're not playing exactly to the 4 or 8 or 12 bar phrase, that the piece might be in. And that way, if you do looping, you have the possibility that you'll be starting new phrases when others are finishing or in the middle of their phrases. And then we have this interesting and commingling polyphony. 2, be careful to listen back and make sure that your piece lines up with the beat, because sometimes as we record, it gets off a little bit due to lag time. And if that happens, as long as you played in the beat, a little bit of adjustment and just manual adjustment, and all of a sudden you're back on the beat. If that happens to you and you're not sure how to do that, just shoot me an email and I'm happy to help fix it, because in Jaden's case, it took approximately 10 seconds. I guess another thing I'd mention is just really make sure to tune well before you play, because we're all playing in the same mode and we want our Fs and B flats and Cs and whatever they would be to really match. So be careful that you really find your intonation well. And then your actual assignment for this week, I'd like to ask you to please make sure to record at least half of the material that you'll use for your final recording on this piece. So one possibility is to really go back and make a loop that you're really excited about and use that for 40 to 50 seconds of the piece. Okay, then you've made half of your contribution. Another is to go back in, find a section of the piece that hasn't been played in yet, and just play one continuous improvisation. And if you don't like it, erase it and play another one, and so on until you're really excited about it. And if you want to add another level of sort of intrigue, play while you're hearing what your peers are playing. In other words, don't turn them all down. Play at the same time and see if that inspires you to play into some of the silences. Okay, so there's a bunch of ideas. So the bottom line is, by the end of next week, we want to have 4 pieces that we're really excited about. And my hope for you all is that at the end of next week, like every moment of the piece that you played, you can listen back and say, yeah, I'm really excited about my contribution. And that's for you. It's not for anybody else. We're not going to take these on tour necessarily, but we want to share them with each other. And I'd love for you all to feel good about what you've created. Okay. If you have any last questions about that, please ask me or throw them in the chat. Meanwhile, let's move over to Cowell. How did it go this week with working on the first section of it? Anybody? Come on, folks, just give me a response. Did you like it? Did it work? How hard was it? Talk to me.
I thought it was okay. Personally, I had to transpose a tuba part up an octave. So that was kind of a different challenge that I had, or different thing I had to do that I hadn't really copied out music like that. Probably since I took AP Music Theory last year. So like practicing my handwriting was fun.
Good. Yeah. Thank you, Jack. I appreciate you taking that on. Yeah. Sebastian said he enjoyed the part and the theme was really cool. Little tricky this week to focus on intonation. The first violin part does go rather high while also being very athletic, I suppose you'd say. That's also true of some of the clarinet parts, flute parts, and even the second violin part goes rather high at places. Yeah. Can get awkward to play, for sure. Okay. I really would love to hear back from more people. You know, you guys, if you could just give some feedback, because I have to say from my two classes at UC and you guys, it's a struggle to just speak to an empty screen. I mean, something we all deal with, and I know you're exhausted by looking at screens too, but I need your feedback in order to know how things are going and to move forward, because I don't actually ever see you in person. I only get some recordings and have to sort of guess how things are going. So when I ask you how things are going, please respond. I really need the response, and not just, you know, from those who are speaking up more often, but from those of you I haven't heard from in a while. It really helps me to judge what's possible with you.
Well, I noticed it was more particular for not the hymn, but the fuguing tune.
Yeah.
But for both, I struggled to find like my own melody, because everything's kind of all thrown together, it sounds like. And I was playing second clarinet, right? So that was a more obscure part, especially for the fuguing tune. It was very, very difficult to tell when I should come in. So I just had to be super rigid about my counting. So it worked, but I almost couldn't tell how my piece fit in because it was so different than everything else.
Yeah, that's a good observation. There's really no way around that other than to make it extremely boring for you guys by just sending you your part alone, which I think would just be kind of awful. So I am actually kind of counting on you just to count carefully and come in when you come in. Did I send out an email with, I think I did this with one of the pieces, and now I'm struggling to remember which one it was, with approximations of where the rehearsal numbers are, because I'm sure that would be helpful for you guys as you work farther into the piece.
I don't remember receiving that, but that would be helpful.
Yeah. Okay, I can do that. I can do that by tomorrow, where I'll go through and listen to the BandLab project and then make a marking of which measure in the BandLab project corresponds to which rehearsal number in the piece. That way, if you have a long rest and you have to come in rehearsal 15 or something like that, you could skip ahead to the approximate BandLab number and then have a better sense of where things are. But yeah, just to finish with Robin's feedback, that's the kind of question I had to answer, Robin, because it's not possible to send you something akin to a BandLab project where you can just like turn up the second clarinet part and play along with that, unless I literally just sent you the second clarinet part, which I feel would be extremely boring way to make music. You know, so the purpose of the MIDI is not so much so that you hear your own part perfectly, which flutes or first violins are more likely to do that, but more that you have a harmonic context for the notes that you're playing, so that you can play with an ear to pitch reference and to tuning reference, right? So that you can tune to the recording that you're playing along with. Still some really fast arco to pitch parts. Yeah, Sierra, there's some really good brass parts. Position transitions in the fuguing tune after some practice. Okay, that's fair, Wirasu. You know, like I would say when you feel you have it as best you can, given the time constraints, go ahead and record, even if the intonation isn't perfect. Okay. Well, given your feedback, I haven't actually even, to be perfectly honest, I haven't actually even looked to see how many of you have finished the assignment from last week up to rehearsal 12. Given the feedback and given the fact that the end of the piece is after rehearsal 17, rehearsal 12 is a good, you know, almost halfway into the piece, maybe a little more than a third of the way into the piece. If we can make it a goal to try to get to a minimum of rehearsal 14 this week, that would be great. So that will give some of you who haven't gotten there yet or haven't had time to record yet a little more time to catch up. That said, if you have gotten to 12 and you rest a little bit after 12, as many of you do, just start at 14 and start rehearsing, start working. And if you want to start recording, that would be great. Brass, you have a lot of heavy playing from 14 to the end. And I mean heavy, like it's a lot of playing. It's very choppy. So, I mean, in the sense of requiring lots of chops. So I would really recommend brass that you work intensively on rehearsing 14 through the end this week and try to make a recording of it, even if it's not the one you keep. Just try recording it to listen to yourself, okay? To listen for intonation, for articulation, and all of those things. Because as I say, that's just, that 14 to the end for brass, it's a lot. I would say, Sierra, for second trumpet, there's a really high passage, 3 before 16. If that's too high, you could take the last 3 bars before 16 down an octave, and that would be fine, including the bar of 16. Yeah. Yeah, there's a really fun parts for brass at the end there, but extremely hard. Okay. Yeah, so Jerry just reminded me of this. I did remember this, but next week is our final rehearsal. So next week is going to be essentially between this week and next, we need to finish up all the recording we're going to do this set. So I would just ask you, if you have anything outstanding from Brahms, if you're still working to catch up on this, whatever we have is what we'll perform with. You know, whatever you're able to submit over the next 2 weeks is what will be within our recorded performances. So in this next week, again, if you want to, play all the way to the end of Cowl. I know that's kind of wishful thinking because there's a lot of practicing that needs to go into that in preparation. But if not, play up through 14. Here's one more note about that. If for most of you, as you get into 14 through the end, there are almost no rests. So this is really important if you could listen to this carefully. Please note where you end in your recording and put it in the title of your recording. So you could say, you know, Hunter Small, 12 to 3 after 14, something like that. And then the next time you play, this is the other side of what's important. The next time you play, start playing a bar before you ended. That way the recording, I can make it seamless where they connect, okay? So if you stop at a place where you're in the middle of continuous music, when you go to make the next recording, please start at least the bar before. Can you all invisibly nods your head, so I know what you understand. Cool. Thank you. All right. Okay, folks. I think what I'll do now is make an announcement and then let you all go a little bit early. And this is a really happy announcement. I'm really excited about this. We have a really big, wonderful project envisioned for next set, and it relates to the Cabrillo Festival of Contemporary Music. So I've been talking to a friend named Danny Clay, and he is a composer friend of mine who, now, Jerry, I haven't mentioned Danny in this context before, have I? Because we've been planning this project in a while. Yeah. So Danny is a composer based in the Bay Area who I know from the new music community in San Francisco / Oakland, larger Bay Area. And he has worked with world-class ensembles. He's a younger guy than me and has already worked with world-class ensembles, including the Kronos Quartet, Friction Quartet, Eighth Blackbird, some orchestras, just lots of different groups. He writes in a lot of different styles, from sort of minimalistic styles to sort of contemporary but tonal styles, to then like also completely improvisational styles. And just a short story here, he wrote a piece for an East Coast wind ensemble at the University of Maryland that I heard premiered online, called Music for Hard Times. And it was a huge scale piece, like 40 minutes long, for that wind ensemble and two soloists, that was premiered with a video, not the typical sort of like everyone in squares like they're on Zoom video, but a sort of original video that just sort of had this visionscape of the sounds that were being heard. And so I contacted him about working with him on that piece with my university group. And he wrote back and said, "Oh, it looks like you have you have a youth symphony. I've been wanting to work with a youth symphony. Would you be interested?" And so I was like, "Yes, please, that would be wonderful." And so to try to make a long story a little shorter, we wanted to commission him to write a piece for us. And we talked to the Cabrillo Festival in Santa Cruz, and we said, "You guys do new music. Here we are trying to commission this new work. Would you like to get involved?" And they have offered to get involved and to help co-sponsor the project, and then to help also present the project, not per se as a concert that is in the Cabrillo Music Festival, but potentially right before the festival, sort of under their aegis or under their umbrella, as something that's co-sponsored by them. And so it looks like we're going to embark on this project next quarter with Danny to create a project that he will make, coming to the meetings, talking to you about how to work on this music. And then he will ask you to create recordings that he'll assemble and create a piece with video that will then be shared online through the Cabrillo Music Festival. And it's just like a enormously wonderful thing for our organization, for all of you who will get this opportunity to be broadcast and to work with this really wonderful composer, and also to work in the world of improvisation, because that's what Danny is really so much about. So I'll finish that thought in just one second, but then as additional good news, a partner project to this will be, if you remember Eli Gilbert from last year, one of our clarinetists, he's actually going to write a piece for violin quartet, which will be performed by the Fortes, which is our sort of resident violin ensemble. And that will be part of this presentation as well. So we'll have a piece by a young composer for the Fortes group. And then also this piece that Danny will write for us, which will probably be in the world of around 15 minutes. So before I answer any questions or bid you good night or whatever, let me just say another word about how Danny works. He is somebody who comes to the world of improvisation from a very personal place and asks you to come to it from a very personal place. So I expect this will be a very different way of working. Danny often works with, rather than writing you a notated part that you have to read the notes and have it be perfect on the page, he might write shorter bits of notes from which you can improvise, or simply give you a written, like in words written, or emotional cue for you to create some sounds with him, for him to work with. And this really comes out of the whole school of Meredith Monk, John Cage, so many others who started working with kind of like different colors of sound that were based on an improvisational image. That's not to say there won't be parts that are written out there where you actually play melodies, but the point is, like, this is going to be a project that every individual can come to from their personality, from their preferred sounds that they like to make. And Danny will be right here, like, talking to you, working with you, sometimes in smaller groups, to kind of coach you on how to think about how to do this stuff. So rather than me in these projects, giving you projects where I just say, go off and, do something for 2 minutes, he actually will work with you on kind of finding the sounds that you want to make. And they might be even short or just shorter phrases. But I feel like it's going to be something that can, I hope and I think, expand everyone's idea of how to improvise, how to be creative, and how to like make, without sounding too Bob Ross or Mr. Rogers here, how to make sounds that you really like and work that into improvisations instead of trying to go the opposite direction, make an improvisation and hope that you like the result, but start from sounds that you like and develop something that you really love. So that's going to be really wonderful for us. Like, this is a great opportunity. He'll be with us, yet to be determined, but probably like maybe half the rehearsals in the spring. And then I'll have some other repertoire and material for us to work on as well. But when he's with us, he'll be working with you on improvisations. He'll be talking to you about his approach to music. And he's a super sweet, warm, personable, interesting guy that I think you'll enjoy working with. And you get to perform essentially in the Cabrillo Festival. We're not an official concert, but it's exciting for us to be adjacent to the festival and to be sponsored by them. All right. Any thoughts or questions?
Well, thanks for arranging that. That sounds really cool.
I think you guys are going to love it. I really hope you will, but I honestly, I'm just going to say I'm confident that you'll have a good experience with it.
And the Cabrillo Festival will be announcing their summer season, which is all online, tomorrow. And that's why we wanted to be sure you got the news tonight. I think they're going to be mentioning the Youth Symphony in their announcement. So it's all very exciting, I think.
Yeah. And to give you guys even a little more credit, Cabrillo Festival has, I think that our orchestra has grown in their esteem over the last couple of years with doing a couple types of new music. We did the piece by, oh, Jerry, I'm blanking on her name.
Miranda Yu.
Miranda Yu, that she was the 17-year-old composer who wrote us the piece. Well, I think she was 16 when she wrote it, because it was called Thoughts of a 16-year-old girl, or thoughts, or reflections of a 16-year-old girl. And then the piece we did for two Korean soloists, that was by my friend named Sarang Kim, that was a concerto for two Korean instruments. I think those pieces made an impression. And so we've gotten to be a little bit on their radar based on the work that you guys have done in this last year and a half with new music. So my thanks to you, for all of you who are involved with that, because that set us up for this opportunity. All right, well, Thanks. So I just ask you all, please give your best to finishing up the music in these last 2 weeks. So, to work on Cowl, the last half of it, up to 14 at the very least this week. I mean, if you're not up to 12 yet, please try to get up to 14 this week. If you are already up to 12 and you only play 14 through the end, work on that, and submit what you can so that we can stay on track for finishing the set well. With that, I say thank you very much. Good to see you all tonight. I hope you enjoyed the Mahler stuff. Go back and listen to it if you're feeling so inclined. I mean, this is all beautiful music to take in as you learn more repertoire along the way. All right. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Great. I don't have anything to add.
Okay.
We're good.
Great.
Yeah, if Cabrillo does make an announcement on their website, I'll send people the link, because
That's great.
I'm pretty sure they wanted it, they wanted that whole summary because they want to use it. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people will be excited to see that news. I mean, hopefully we do make it onto the list with an actual title. Oh, I was going to add something else.
I noticed Danny's an earlier piece was called Singing Puzzles, and this one is called Sounding Puzzles. So he may have some connection. I didn't get a chance.
There definitely will be. Yeah, he's working a lot on this idea of students working out music through various cues, which I think he just thinks of as puzzles. So a lot of times they're symbols that correspond to different types of sound. And so the students are just encouraged to not worry so much about notes, but just about different kinds of sound. And I think that's where the puzzles idea comes from. But I won't pigeonhole him. I'll let him describe it. But yeah, I think it's part of an ongoing kind of series that he's been working on.
Cool. And I'm happy that I think I'm right that the pianist will have a part to play as well.
Yeah, this is going to be less about parts per se, as in terms of like instrumental parts for specific instruments,
Right.
and more about just cues that everyone is given. But I'm sure there will be some individual parts given to various players.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Sitting through the rehearsals all year without having anything.
Oh my God, she's been so patient. It's amazing.
On the other hand, she's not doing the improvisations, so I don't
Yeah, there's just a lack of communication somehow there. It's not on our part, because I know you've reached out multiple times, and I suspect she's just kind of biding her time to get back into the orchestra.
Yeah, I think she should play the concerto competition. She's putting
that
in
would make sense.
Yeah, now. Well, and I guess, do you have any news about classes in the fall?
Yes, they've been restored. Well, so this is all pending final confirmation, because things could go very far south in the summer if with mutants of the virus or whatever. But right now, the news that we have is classes will be in person for students who want them to be in person. What that means for our possibility of performing the recital hall, I don't yet know. It's not likely we could do it with a full audience, but I do think if our classes are meeting in person, I think that means that our classes will perform in the recital hall, even if that just means doing a live stream. So I guess I should reach back out to Dave and see what he has to say about that now. But right now, I do know that classes will be in person. My classes, shy of something awful happening over the summer, will be back in person. I've been assured of that.
That'll be such a relief for you.
Yeah, I can't even begin to describe what a relief that'll be.
Great. Well, I hope things continue to go well. It seems like the vaccines are rolling out now faster than they anticipated. So
yeah, it does. It's looking good. I mean, I heard Anthony Fauci say he thought everyone would have at least the opportunity to be vaccinated by April, which seemed shocking to me, but he said it, so he must think that it must be possible.
Well, I had my first shot on Valentine's Day.
Wonderful.
It was hard to get an appointment though.
Yeah.
It's easier now.
Well, I'm glad, Jerry. When do you have your second one?
March 14th.
Which variant did you get?
Moderna.
Yeah.
At CBS. It was Sutter had a few appointments and then they had nothing for days and days, and people were making themselves crazy trying to get an appointment.
Yeah.
And then CBS came along and I went on their website at the right time. So
Well, now Oakland has the Coliseum as a vaccination center, and they're vaccinating thousands of people a day.
yeah.
So that's nice to see.
You won't have to wait too much longer.
I don't think I will. Educators have been put on the list, so it's just really a matter of me making an appointment.
Good. All right. Have a good week and good night.
All right. Night, Jerry.